The hum of the old ceiling fan echoed in the back of the abandoned warehouse. Dust hung in the air like fog, disturbed only by the flicker of overhead fluorescent lights that buzzed in irregular pulses. The temperature was cold, not in the way of malfunctioning AC, but in the kind that settles into your bones when you step into a place that should have stayed shut. Four creators stood in the middle of the repurposed space, facing the plywood sign painted in sloppy red, Freddy's real-life pizza place. "It's gonna go viral," Hui muttered, spinning the GoPro in his hand. A real Five Nights at Freddy's experience. No mods. No CGI. Just us, cameras, and the creepiest animatronics you've ever seen. Lynn adjusted her hoodie, glancing over at the stage setup in the far corner. The mascots, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, stood silently, just where they'd been placed. But something about them already felt wrong. "It's not supposed to feel this real," she said quietly. "Isn't that the point?" laughed Tuan, their behind-the-scenes techie. He gestured toward the retro security office they'd built, complete with metal doors, static monitors, battery indicators, and a working power supply rig. "The more real it is, the better the content." That night, they began filming. The concept was simple: take turns spending the night in the security room, just like in the game. Observe the animatronics through the camera system. Survive until 6 a.m. Harmless fun. All recorded. All for the algorithm. Lynn volunteered to go first. She sat inside the dimly lit control room, headset on, eyes flicking from one grainy monitor to the next. A thick manual fan spun near her face, but the air it blew was barely comforting. The hallway lights flickered. Her radio crackled. "All systems up." Animatronics still in sleep mode, Tuan's voice came through. "Copy," Lynn replied, flipping through each camera feed. Kitchen, arcade, ball pit, stage. Then she stopped. On camera 3, main hallway, something moved. It wasn't clear, just a shadow slipping out of frame. Lynn leaned closer. Rewound. Nothing. Just the hallway. She chuckled nervously. "You guys messing with me already?" "Not yet," Hui replied. "But now I kinda want to." Lynn stared at the screen. Camera 3 glitched again. She tapped the monitor. Suddenly, a distorted voice hissed from the speakers. "Welcome. Night 1 begins." She froze. "Who triggered the audio?" she asked. Silence. "No one," Tuan said. "That line isn't even in our system." A mechanical clunk echoed in the distance. Lynn's camera feed to the arcade area went black. "Camera 5 just died," she reported. Before anyone could reply, camera 7 lit up. Chica was standing 2 inches closer to the lens than before. "I thought we disabled movement," she whispered. "We did," Tuan said. "None of them should be powered." Chica's head twitched, just once, and her beak opened slightly. Lynn slammed the button to close the left metal door. Back in the main control room, the others watched the footage, half amused, half concerned. "Must be a bug in the servos," Tuan muttered, eyes narrowing. "We wired it for a static pose." By midnight, things only got weirder. The group decided to rotate shifts. Hui stepped in for his turn. He was confident, loud, joking into the camera, "All right folks, your fearless night guard is here. Let's see what these robot chickens can do." He lasted 30 minutes. Lynn and the others watched through the backup monitors as the hallway lights dimmed around Hui's booth. The animatronics began to move, slowly at first, limbs clicking awkwardly like they were being wound by invisible hands. Then they started to track him on the cameras. Everywhere he looked, a different one appeared. Sometimes just a shadow. Sometimes a full face inches from the lens. Bonnie's red eye blinked once. And then again. Freddy's head tilted when Hui whispered, "Are you watching me?" Then all the lights died at once. The audio cut. The camera feed scrambled. And then, screaming. It wasn't Hui's voice. It was robotic. Distorted. And it came from every speaker at once. No one leaves after dark. To be continued. Lin burst into the hallway as soon as the feed returned. The emergency lights had switched on, a dull red glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The power breaker tripped, and Hui stood frozen in the center of the corridor, pale, his breathing sharp and shallow. "They moved," he whispered. "I didn't touch anything. They moved." Freddy's figure stood perfectly still at the end of the hallway. But now, his hat was tilted, and his arms slightly extended. His hand was down before, Lin muttered. She wasn't trying to scare Hui, just confirming what they all felt but didn't want to believe. Tuan rushed to the main panel and shut down the animatronic relays. Sparks flew. Something had overridden the manual lockout. That shouldn't have been possible. By morning, the group decided to reframe the project. Make it a challenge event. Film mini-games. Keep the scares up, lean into the chaos, as Duke put it, but always with cameras rolling. The next afternoon, they designed the first interactive segment, a scavenger hunt. Participants, invited YouTubers and TikTok creators, were tasked with retrieving parts lost inside the animatronics. Freddy's hat. Bonnie's guitar pick. Chica's cupcake. They had 5 minutes each, headlamps on, the entire building under low power. Nothing was supposed to move. Everything was just for fun. Until one player reached for Foxy's eye patch. The footage later showed her hand trembling slightly as she lifted the prop from Foxy's hook. But it was Foxy's eye that followed her. Subtly. Smoothly. Like it wasn't mechanical at all. The scream wasn't recorded. The lights died again. When power was restored 3 minutes later, the player was found in the storage room, crying, unharmed, but unable to speak. That night, the group argued whether to continue. Lin wanted to pull the plug. Hui insisted they were onto something viral, dangerous, yes, but brilliant. The footage had spiked their channel's followers by over 50,000 in 12 hours. By the third day, challenges escalated. They organized a musical chairs game, fun, nostalgic, filled with lights and distorted circus music. But halfway through, the animatronics began circling the players during the rounds. Lin watched from the control room, pressing her lips together as the music glitched, skipping half beats, voices overlapping. Freddy's mouth didn't just open when the music stopped, it seemed to mouth the words. "You're next." By now, none of the team slept in the building. They only entered in pairs. Duke tried resetting the server rack that managed the animatronic routines. It sparked. A file labeled night_0 appeared on the monitor, no one had installed it. Inside the file, footage of the team during the first night, shot from angles they hadn't installed cameras. "We need to stop," Lin said again. "We finished the week," Hui replied. On the fourth night, they launched the hide-and-seek segment. Each animatronic would be released into a different section of the warehouse. Players had 60 seconds to hide. It was supposed to be thrilling, safe, each robot had sensor fields and audio triggers. They couldn't touch anyone. That was the plan. But no one anticipated that the robots didn't follow programming anymore. One by one, the hidden players were discovered, not by audio or sensors, but because the animatronics found them. Actively. Moving off track. Ducking under beams. Crawling. One player was cornered in the ball pit. The footage showed Freddy's face just inches from the players, eyes locked, before the screen went to static. The player later described it like being watched by something that could think. That night, no one spoke at dinner. The pizza they'd ordered stayed untouched. On day 5, they tried to lighten the mood with a speed-eating challenge. Classic Freddy's theme. Loud, silly, over the top. Until Chica appeared in the background of a frame, just watching. Her mouth slowly opening wider than it should. None of them saw it until they reviewed the footage. And by then, it was already too late. By the fifth night, the tension in the group wasn't just nerves, it was dread. No one cracked jokes anymore. No one mentioned viral content or this will blow up. Even Hui, who had once laughed in the face of the animatronics, now refused to enter the building unless someone else was with him. But they all agreed, just one more night. One final event. To wrap everything up, they recreated the original FNAF game mode. One player in the security room. Cameras active. Power limited. The doors. Manual. The animatronics. Active. The guest player, someone popular, flown in just for the finale, was briefed like it was a horror escape room. He was excited. I grew up on this game, he said, grinning behind the headset. This is like a dream. The team stayed in the observation booth, watching on delay. Lin monitored the battery usage, Tuan handled the camera feeds. Duke had installed a failsafe kill switch. Just in case. It didn't work. As the clock hit midnight, something changed. The system rejected input. All the cameras switched to static, except one, CAM_6, the hallway outside the security room. Freddy stood there. Not moving. Not blinking. The player laughed. Okay. Y'all are killing it with the realism. But then the lights dimmed. Freddy stepped closer. The door controls lit up, but didn't respond. The player pressed them, once, twice, 5 times. Nothing. Guys, he asked, voice shifting. Doors not working. Then came the whisper. Not through speakers, but over the live feed. A gravelly, broken voice layered with static. You left the game on too long. In the observation booth, Lin paled. That's not the game, she said. Tuan slammed keys. The keyboard locked. Screen flickered. The power usage in the game UI rose rapidly, but they hadn't programmed that. The door in the security room creaked slightly. The player stumbled backward. Freddy's head tilted sideways. A low mechanical whine filled the room. His mouth opened, not with animatronic movement, but with something that looked like hunger. Then the feed cut. Black screen. When they burst into the room moments later, the player was gone. The headset lay on the floor. No blood. No struggle. Just silence. And Freddy? Back on stage. Exactly where he'd started. Lin didn't speak the rest of that night. She just stared at the frozen security footage on the monitor, the exact moment the player vanished. Not ran. Not screamed. Just blinked out of existence, as if Freddy had dragged him into a glitch no one could fix. Tuan tried restoring the backups. All the files were corrupted. Every folder from that night was replaced by a single one. Night_0. No one remembered creating it. No one remembered uploading it. It just appeared. When they opened it, the screen dimmed, and a single video began playing. Static, at first. Then an image, a night vision camera angle from inside the storage closet, one they didn't install. And in the center of the frame was the player. The one who vanished. He was standing, still, unmoving, eyes wide, mouth parted as if caught mid-breath. But the worst part? He wasn't alone. Behind him, Freddy. Smiling. But this Freddy wasn't the suit. This Freddy was larger, darker. Moving in ways that ignored mechanics. His limbs twitched at impossible angles, and his face bent, subtly, slowly, into a mockery of a human grin. The screen flickered. Then the player turned and looked straight into the camera, as if seeing the group through the monitor. "I can still see you," he whispered. Lin unplugged the system. But the video didn't stop. "You brought them to life," the voice said. "You opened the door." And just like that, every animatronic in the warehouse powered on, without electricity. Freddy raised his head. Chica twitched her hands. Foxy leaned forward, claws scratching the wood beneath his platform. That night, the group barricaded themselves in the main office. Tuan tried cutting the master power. Duke held a metal pipe, useless against anything bigger than a mouse. Hui paced, muttering, "It's just a game. It has to be a game. It's just corrupted files." But Lin wasn't so sure anymore. That wasn't programming. That wasn't a glitch. That was something, aware. And it remembered them. The floor vibrated slightly. A low mechanical whir echoed from down the corridor, rhythmic like a heartbeat. Doors slammed one by one as if something was searching for them room to room. And in the dead silence between each bang, the same whisper returned, "Closer now. Night Zero never ends." The banging stopped. The hallway fell silent, except for the soft, mechanical breathing that now came from the vents above. The group sat frozen, pressed against the cold walls of the office, every shadow feeling longer than it should be, every second dragging like metal on metal. Tuan wiped sweat from his brow. "This isn't a glitch," he whispered. "Something hijacked the system." "We already pulled the servers," Duke said. "We killed the network," Freddy's still moving. "We're not dealing with code anymore," Lin added. Her voice was quiet but firm. "We brought something into the real world, and it doesn't want to leave." In a corner of the room, the laptop they used for programming beeped. Despite being shut down, the screen lit up. Log file, night_0.initiate. A message blinked on the screen. They remember the ones who watched, before the game was finished. Then another line. The first version. The forbidden one. The one they buried. Hui stood behind her, shaking his head. "This is fake. Someone's hacking us." But the date on the file was from before they even started building. Lin opened the file's contents. Video logs. Audio fragments. Blueprints. They weren't from the retail game. These were sketches, development notes, unreleased lore from the original developers. Concepts that were abandoned, because something went wrong. One of the audio files played itself automatically. A woman's voice, shaky and recorded through what sounded like an old tape deck. The animatronics, they learned. Not from programming. From watching. The children. The players. They copied what scared them. And then, they started using it. There was a long pause. Then a metallic scraping sound. The woman whispered. "If you're hearing this, don't finish the night." The clip ended with a deafening tone. Lin closed the laptop and backed away. "We triggered something that was never supposed to run." The lights flickered violently. Outside the office, the cameras they hadn't installed showed movement, Freddy pacing a circle in the main room. Chica standing motionless, her mouth wide open, soundless screams frozen in place. Bonnie was missing entirely from the feeds. That was when Tuan made a decision. "We reset the core," he said. "Hard reset. Burn the local servers. Cut power for real. There's a backup generator," Duke reminded him. "In the basement." Silence. The basement. The one place no one had been since they moved in. The one place never fully renovated. The others hesitated. But Lin nodded. "I'll go." Tuan looked at her. "We go together." They left through the back office door, flashlights barely holding a beam through the thick, musty air. The hallway to the basement was long and narrow, with torn Freddy-themed posters flapping gently from water-damaged walls. A thump echoed behind them. They didn't turn around. The basement stairs groaned under their weight. The air turned cold, and not just because of the concrete. As they reached the bottom, Lynn's light flickered once, then steadied. The backup generator sat against the far wall, still humming. And then, they saw it. Painted on the wall in dried oil, or maybe something darker, were the words. Night Zero never ended. The words on the wall dripped slowly, as if they had only just been written. Lynn stepped back, heart thudding, flashlight shaking in her hand. That wasn't here before. Tuan didn't answer. He was staring at the generator, eyes narrowing. The unit was humming, but the readings were wrong, surging and dipping like something else was drawing power from it. He leaned closer. Just then, from behind the massive unit, came a low sound. Like breathing. Mechanical. Heavy. And far too close. Lynn raised her light. Something stood there, tall, bulky, unmoving. Freddy. But this wasn't the mascot they had unboxed and set up with servos. This Freddy was wrong. His limbs were longer, his joints creaked like rusted chains, and something glistened between the gaps in his suit, like wet flesh. His jaw hung crooked, and deep in his eyes burned two red-orange lights that flickered like fire. And when he moved, it wasn't robotic. It was smooth. Predatory. Tuan grabbed Lynn's arm and yanked her back toward the stairs. Run. Freddy lunged, but not fast. Slow. Intentional. Like he wanted them to panic. They ran. Up the stairs, through the hallway, back toward the office. Freddy didn't chase. But they could still hear the tap, tap, tap of his metal feet behind them. Slow. Steady. Never stopping. When they reached the others, Lynn slammed the door shut. He's not just a machine anymore, she gasped. He's something else. The monitors lit up again, every feed now active, even the ones that had gone black. Each animatronic was standing in front of a different camera. Staring. Waiting. And then all of them, in perfect sync, turned their heads toward the lens. The audio buzzed to life. You wanted to play. You wanted us real. We remember your faces. One by one, the lights in the warehouse started shutting off, zone by zone. Emergency power is still running, Duke said. But we're down to 15%. Tuan looked at the others, panic giving way to grim resolve. We either escape now, or we never do. Hui didn't speak. He just picked up the axe they had used for set construction and nodded. They split into two groups, Tuan and Duke headed for the breaker to cut all remaining systems. Lin and Hui made for the main exit, trying to override the electronic lock. The halls were pitch black now. Foxy was gone. Chica's laughter echoed faintly from the vents. And somewhere deeper in the dark, Bonnie was singing. A twisted, glitching version of the theme they once thought was just silly. It's me, it's always been me. Lin whispered, they're using the lines from the old Alpha build. That build was never released. I know, Hui said. But it's running itself. Then a voice came through the intercoms, one they all recognized. The missing player. The one who vanished on night 5. I told you, his voice said. I can still see you. Night 0 never ends. Because you made it real. And with that, every door in the facility slammed shut. Locks clanked. Alarms triggered. The warehouse became a trap. And the game had truly begun. The warehouse groaned like a living thing. Emergency lights blinked red along the floor, casting long, twitching shadows across the metal walls. Lin and Hui pressed against the cold steel door, trying override codes, backup switches, even brute force, but nothing worked. The door was locked by something deeper than any control panel. It wasn't a system failure. It was deliberate. "They don't want us to leave," Lin said. "No," Hui muttered, "they want us to finish the night." Over the intercom, Bonnie's glitched song looped like a broken music box. Far in the shadows, faint metallic tapping echoed, first slow, then accelerating. A scream rang out from somewhere near the arcade room, followed by sudden silence. Tuan and Duke had gone that way. Lin grabbed Hui's wrist. "We have to find them." Hui hesitated. Then nodded. "But if Freddy's out there?" "We split," she said. "It's the only way we'll cover more ground." Hui looked at her like she was insane. But something in Lin's eyes wasn't fear, it was focus. "I'll draw him to me," she said. "You find the breaker. Kill the power. All of it." Hui opened his mouth to protest, but she was already running. Her flashlight cut through the black like a single scream in a quiet room. She didn't look back. As she passed the hallway leading to the old party rooms, she could hear Foxy giggling, low, distorted. But she didn't stop. Instead, she began calling out. "Hey Freddy. You want a game? Come get me." From the shadows, a growl. Behind her, heavy footsteps began pounding the tile floor. Freddy had heard. She ran. Down the central corridor. Past the gift shop. Into the kitchen. Freddy followed. Each step closer. Each creak louder. Every monitor she passed lit up with static and a flashing line of text. "You brought me here. Now you'll stay." In the control room, Hui stumbled across Tuan, bloodied, but alive. He'd been thrown against a wall, ribs likely cracked, but conscious. "Where's Duke?" Hui asked. Tuan shook his head. "Gone." They pulled themselves into the breaker room, now lit only by a faint red emergency light. Hui found the core control panel, its screen flickering. A prompt blinked in the center. "Initiate final power cut, warning, cannot be undone." Hui hesitated. If he pressed it, everything went dark. All fail-safes gone. But Freddy would lose his playground. He slammed the key. The warehouse went silent. Freddy stopped mid-step. Lin crouched behind the prep counter, breathing hard, flashlight dead. She heard nothing. Not even static. Not even breathing. Until Freddy spoke. Not through a speaker. Right behind her. "You finished the night." She turned. He was inches away. And then. Darkness. Silence. Then a sound. Drip, drip, drip. Lin's eyes fluttered open. Everything was blurry at first, dim red lighting, static crackling faintly in her ears. Her body ached, like she'd fallen from a great height. Her fingers trembled as she pushed herself up from the cold tile floor of the kitchen. The warehouse was still. No sounds of servos. No voices. No footsteps. The last thing she remembered was Freddy's face, right behind her, speaking words that were never meant to come from anything mechanical. "You finished the night." And yet, she was still here. The only sound was the low hum of backup generators. Somehow, power had returned. She stepped out of the kitchen and into the central hallway. Her boots splashed in a shallow puddle, water from a busted pipe, or maybe something else. Then she saw it, Hui's flashlight on the ground, still on, its beam casting a sharp circle against the wall. Next to it, the axe. Lin picked it up. Her breath caught in her chest as she turned the corner and found Tuan slumped against the breaker room door. He was breathing, barely. His eyes opened slowly. "You cut the system?" Lin nodded. "I think Hui did it." Tuan blinked. "Where is he?" She didn't answer. Because she didn't know. She helped Tuan up. They moved slowly through the corridors now, every sound amplified in the silence, every creak of their shoes, every breath. Something had changed. Freddy was gone. Or, hiding. Then Lin saw the monitor room door was ajar. She stepped inside and stopped cold. Every camera feed was active again, but not live. They were looping. Not just the last night. All 5. Each monitor showed a different gameplay moment, the scavenger hunt, the musical chairs, the pizza eating contest, the hide and seek. But each replay was off. In the hide and seek footage, Foxy moved before the timer started. In the pizza challenge, Chica blinked. In the scavenger hunt, the player who disappeared stared into the camera like he knew he was being watched. It wasn't just memory. It was a message. Lin leaned in. A line of code scrolled across the screens, something embedded deep in the feed. Processing player file. U equals night_0. Escape equals false. The monitor in front of her suddenly cut to black. Then, in white letters. Night 0 was never meant to be beaten. It was meant to choose. Behind her, the lights began flickering again. A sound like metal grinding filled the air. Tuan whispered, "We need to go. Now." But Lin just stared at the final message now pulsing on every screen in the room. One remains. Finish it. The words burned into her mind. One remains. Finish it. Lin turned from the screen. The warehouse was quiet again, but not in a peaceful way. It was the silence of something holding its breath, waiting. Tuan leaned heavily against the wall, pale and struggling to stay upright. What does it mean, finish it? Lin's voice was hollow. I think it wants me to play the last night. No, he said immediately. We shut it down. It's over. But it wasn't. Every screen in the warehouse still glowed. Every animatronic stood in place, waiting, not deactivated, but dormant. As if listening. Night 0 had not ended. It was resetting. Lin stepped out into the corridor, the axe still clutched in her hand. The emergency lights flickered like heartbeat monitors. She walked past the remains of broken props, overturned chairs, and the shredded remnants of posters that once looked fun, now soaked with something darker. When she reached the security room, the door opened on its own. Inside, the monitors were already switching views on their own, hallway cams, kitchen, prize corner, party rooms, and the breaker room. Only now, Freddy was back in every feed. Standing. Waiting. Watching her. She sat down in the chair, the same chair the first player had used. The door controls blinked. Begin final night. She didn't click anything. The system clicked itself. Yes. A timer appeared on the screen, 12 a.m. And then the lights died completely. Her breath fogged in the cold. The hum of the generator faded into dead silence. Then came the sounds. A soft mechanical laugh. A voice, not from the speakers, but inside the walls. Welcome back, player. She shut the left door. It screeched shut. Bonnie's face appeared in the right hallway cam, closer than before. She slammed the right door. Power dropped, 85%. The hallway camera glitched, Freddy gone. She checked the stage cam. Nothing. All 4 animatronics were off screen now. A knock hit the right door. Then the left. Then both, over and over again, as if they weren't trying to get in, but remind her that they could, at any moment. The lights flickered. Power, 65%. She clutched the axe tighter. 1:17 a.m. Then the static returned to all screens, except one. Camera 0. It was a live feed of her. In the chair. Staring at the screen. Behind her. Freddy. She turned, but the room was empty. When she turned back to the monitor, the camera view was zooming in on her face. Slowly. Glitching. Then her voice played through the speakers, recorded without her knowing. You wanted us real. Now you get to stay. Every screen cut to black. A final message blinked. Night 0 equals complete. 1 remains. You. Darkness swallowed the room. Not the kind that came from lights being off, but the kind that felt alive, thick, heavy, breathing with her. Lynn sat frozen in the chair, the hum of the monitors now replaced by silence so complete it pressed against her ears like a scream trapped just behind glass. Then, slowly, the final monitor flickered back on. It no longer showed security cameras. It showed her. Not her now. Her in the past, arriving at the warehouse on day 1, laughing, pulling back the plastic on Freddy's torso, setting up lights, rolling her eyes at Tuan's jokes. Frame by frame, moment by moment, the entire project played in reverse. But in every frame, hidden deep in the pixels, Freddy was there. In the shadows. Reflected in glass. Peeking just behind a frame. Watching them. Waiting. She looked around the room again. Still empty. Still cold. Then a voice behind her, familiar, twisted. We don't want the game to end. She turned. Freddy stood in the corner. But he didn't move. He only stared, eyes glowing like coals. And from the speaker, her own voice repeated one last phrase. I wanted them to feel real. You did, Freddy replied. Too real. She stepped forward. No fear left. Just truth. You're not just code, she said. You're memory. You're every fear we fed you. Every scream. Every glitch we ignored. You were never supposed to be a character. He blinked slowly. I know, he whispered. And in that moment, she understood. Night 0 wasn't a game mode. It was a mirror. It didn't trap players. It reflected them, every fear, every obsession, every time they let the darkness entertain them without thinking of what it could become. And now, it wanted to keep her. Lynn turned to the control panel. Her hand hovered over the emergency purge key, meant to wipe the entire system, files, hardware, and backups. A permanent reset. Behind her, Freddy stepped closer. His footsteps sounded like ticking. The system asked. Confirm delete night_0. She whispered, goodbye. She pressed yes. Everything lit up white. Not fire. Not static. Just, silence. And then, darkness again. This time, empty. Truly empty. Weeks later, the warehouse stood abandoned. Police found nothing inside, no animatronics, no equipment, not even signs of habitation. Just an empty shell with faint burn marks near the breaker room and scorched wires inside a melted laptop. Tuan survived. So did Duke, barely. Hui was never found. And Lin. Gone. Except. In a small glitch on a viral YouTube clip titled Real FNAF Prank Scare Fails. Exactly 3 minutes, 42 seconds in, there's a frame. One frame. A girl in a security uniform. Sitting in the dark. Smiling at the camera. And behind her. Red glowing eyes. Watching. Waiting. Because Night 0 never really ends.